Hey, it's a new Sprint Ride Option podcast. If you're a fan of what the 49ers have looked like the past couple of years, I got some bad news for you. But if you thought tight end 2 was the biggest need, I got great news for you. Let's talk about day 1 of legal tampering starting now.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Ride Option podcast. Oh my goodness. It is a day to be legally tampered with. They call it the open negotiation period. Has started in the NFL. More importantly, though, a new episode of the Sprint Ride Option podcast has just started. I am Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte. And Jason, you know how we always start these. How you doing today?
I'm fine. Sure, a lot of people aren't, but I'm fine.
It has been a busy day, so let's dive into it because there's going to be a lot of names. Be ready. I'm not going to start. I'm going to start with what the biggest impact are to the 49ers, whether it's they leave or they come. Not too many players are joining the 49ers today. Unfortunately, it's been a very busy players leaving the Niners day. Let's start with the most recent one and the biggest one. Dre Greenlaw just signed, or not just signed, he agreed to a 3-year, $35 million contract with the Denver Broncos. A player who made a name for himself very quickly in 2019. I remember the days of training camp of everybody talking about, hey, this linebacker Greenlaw, he's gonna be a dude. You hear it all year. He has a couple big plays throughout the season. I remember the interception against Seattle on that Monday night game the Niners lose in 2019. And then obviously the big one against Seattle in week 18, week 17, whatever it was back then. I forget what year they added the 18th game. But obviously the stop at the goal line was a huge play. He is now a member of the Denver Broncos. Jason, let's just kind of start your thoughts on Dre Greenlaw, the Niner, before we talk about what this looks like in the future.
Unfortunately, I never expected him back. When you look at a player like that and what he did in about 30 snaps, you knew somebody was going to take a chance on risk reward and go ahead and throw a bunch of money at him. So it didn't shock me. I guess the only thing that shocks me is that it's Denver. I would have thought it was going to be Houston, to have him link up with Azeez Al-Shire, but I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked by anybody that left because we figured they were going to leave anyway. Mm-hmm. There's no shocking departure. The 49ers didn't really have free agents that they were going to sit there and say, hey, we're bringing back anyway. So I wasn't shocked. I was just shocked that it wasn't Houston. That's what I was shocked at.
Yeah, there was a few teams that seemed like got involved kind of late. Tennessee, Dallas, Miami were all involved. The Niners were never really mentioned as a team in on Greenlaw for obvious reasons they told us on Friday, looking to get cheaper here and there. I thought this contract was a little lower than I know Greenlaw's coming off the Achilles, only played 30 snaps this season. But I thought the contract was a little lower than I expected. I thought maybe the Niners could compete with that 3 for 35 deal, but obviously it isn't. For the future of what this means, I mean, I got to word this very carefully, Jason, because I know a lot of people really like Dre Greenlaw. I think he's somebody who can be replaced. I think all these players can be replaced. However, don't replace them with Devondre Campbell. Maybe not Bobby Wagner, not Hendricks in Dallas. Maybe not one of those guys. But maybe get a little younger. Maybe use a draft pick on a linebacker. We mentioned Jahad Campbell last week. I don't think that's a realistic one unless the Niners trade back for him in the first round. But I'm sure the Niners will be able to find a linebacker. They've drafted a couple the past few years who've had varying levels of success. D. Winters being one of which. It sucks because it feels like this really good era of 49ers football is somewhat coming to an end. Dre Greenlaw being one of the big names, a part of that era, and we'll talk about a few others of those names, as Greenlaw is not the only one who left the 49ers today. But it is something that, we talked about after that Rams game of the Niners defense just felt different in that first half compared to the previous 15 games at the point of that season without Greenlaw. And having Greenlaw on that defense in that one half, it just you felt it. So yeah. In terms of an emotional leader, yes, absolutely a huge loss for this locker room who needs some type of personality. And maybe there's a backup quarterback the Niners can sign. We'll talk about that in a little bit later. Jacina Anderson report about a personality they could add to the locker room. But in terms of the defense, it's just it's a big loss. It really is emotionally. mentality, leadership, but on the field, I think you can figure it out. I think there's things that Dre Greenlaw lacked, especially run defense wise. We a lot of the things we talked about on this podcast about Dre Greenlaw was missing, gaps, responsibility, all that stuff. But I just it's going to be tough to replace him as a leader of this defense.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the thought was, hey, Jameis Wood will be there, and he's somebody who was with Robert Saleh. Yeah, well, he was gone early on as well too. So I think the disappointment about what's going on in free agency is less about who left and the additions that weren't made, right? And I think that was us kind of putting things in our own mind, but we should have known that this was not going to happen with these names, and especially with the amount of money that people were getting paid for their performance, which nowhere near warranted it. So the 49ers are going to make moves in second and third, waves of free agency, and they're going to figure out that stuff. I think we should have all known that. That's been the message, and that's been what they've been doing with their actions and everything as well, too. But the backup to the backup to the backup plan to get Greenlaw in, to replace Greenlaw is done. So the 49ers are going to have to do it in the draft. And, if they want to get Jahad Campbell, they're going to have to find a way to trade back into the first round and keep pick 11 somehow.
Yeah, it's as I said, I think in theory this should be a decent, not easy replacement, because again, I'm not trying to belittle Dre Greenlaw, what he meant. Obviously, he's a very talented NFL player, but I think it's a player you can replace, especially through the draft if you hit on the right. I think that's every position, Jason. If you hit on the right guy, you're going to have a good draft. If you do that 7-8 times, But it is. Really, I know a lot of people are talking about day 2, day 3 of free agency, the Niners are going to be able to, that's where they're going to do their damage, but that's not typically where you're going to find starters. And that's kind of the concern for a lot of these losses, especially on the offensive line. I know the Niners, it feels like the Niners offensive line is set at this moment. Depends on, I know there's a little conversation with Spencer Burford or Ben Barch at left guard, but with Drew Dahlman signing with Chicago, we'll talk about that one a little bit. It's hard to navigate through free agency at this point to find starters because they're all more or less gone, unless you want to talk about Joey Bosa, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But I just don't see how you look at this free agency class and say, yeah, Dre Greenlaw's replacement's right there, because he's not. And now it's who the best linebacker you can find in the draft, and that's really going to be a lot of these positions the Niners have lost in these 8 hours, 9 hours of free agency already. It's going to be draft related players.
Well, D Winters, come on down. You're going to get your shot now, right? Unfortunately, you haven't proven that you've been able to stay on the field. So that's what we're going to start harping on right now immediately. So, but yeah, it's going to have to be in the draft. The problem is that, the guy that will be optimal is Jahad Campbell, but that's somebody, it's just not going to happen. Like you're not going to be able to get your hands on him unless you do something drastic and pull right back into the first round. So, yeah, it is what it is at this point. But, yeah, they're going to have to figure it out. And it's probably going to have to be, D Winters. And you don't feel great about that. I'll tell you that. No. You don't feel great about that.
Well, from one player, the Niners lost to Denver to another player. Niners might not have to replace him because I feel pretty good about Malik Mustafa. Talanoa Hufanga goes to the Denver Broncos as well. I'll put him in the same category as Dre Greenlaw. He's been here a little less, or he's been here for a shorter amount of time than Dre Greenlaw. He is that player that he's an emotional leader. He is a leader on this defense. And in the very short time he was here, he wasn't here very long. Some injury issues kind of arose with him. And then obviously some consistency issues, which I think you could talk about Dre Greenlaw as well. This one, it sucks to lose a name, especially when he's a second team all pro for you in his rookie season or his second season. His first season as a starter. There we go. But this one, I'm not losing sleep over, really, honestly. I think the play I think of when I think of Talanoa Hufanga, and I know there's a lot of great plays, but I'm talking what have you done for me recently? And I sent I have a Denver Broncos fan or a friend who is excited about Hufanga, and this was the first play I sent him, was the hook and ladder against Detroit. The one where Amon-Ra St. Brown made the catch and flipped it to David Montgomery, kind of taking advantage of Hufanga's aggressiveness on that play, because 4 Niners were coming in on Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Talanoa Hufanga, who was on the back end of that play, came crashing down when he didn't need to, and Denver or Detroit took advantage of it. So I just Hufanga, that's a great signing for Denver. I could see him being a player who makes an impact in Denver. I just don't think the 49ers were going to wait on him, especially with the progression you saw in Malik Mustafa's rookie season at safety.
Yeah, he's replaceable. Malik Mustafa, come on down. That's it. I mean, at this point, look, you've got some great moments with him, but when I start thinking about it, as I start thinking about Kyler Murray running and pointing by himself, like running straight to the end zone, like, because you completely bit the cheese on, again, emotional leader, everything cool, fine, but not unexpected, and again, you feel fine with Malik Mustafa. You just got to figure out what you're going to do now with either Jair Brown, or you figure out somebody else that you could bring in. Justin Reed, Javon Holland still out there. I just don't think the 49ers are going to shell out big bucks anywhere. So I wouldn't bet on either of those things, but those are options right now for the 49ers.
Yep. No, definitely they're options. It's I think really I had a bad tweet yesterday, admittedly, regarding the Niners pass rush about how they could have gotten Trey Hendrickson or Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, but they're going to settle for Joey Bosa. Very bad tweet on my end. But you make a good point, Jason, is after that article on Friday with the Jed York, the whole podcast we talked about. And if you guys haven't, go check out that episode. We talk about Mike Silver's pace. We should have known that this was going to be a very inactive day for the 49ers. And that's exactly what it's been. You mentioned a couple names that you could go and sign to replace Talanoa Hufanga. Right now, I don't think the Niners are necessarily in the business of buying. And I think today, and I noticed Sour Death Sam in the comments here mentioned it. Today was the first indicator of we might be a little closer to a rebuild than we think, but we'll see. Obviously, March 10th, legal tampering just started. Really quick, just last Denver note, just because we're on this team, and then we'll go to a couple other players the Niners lost today. DJ Jones re-signed with the Denver Broncos, talking about defensive tackle help. He was a player the Niners used to have. I think there's a case to be made that the Niners run defense hasn't been the same since they lost DJ Jones. I know a lot of people were maybe hoping the Niners would bring him back, but Denver retains the defensive tackle they brought in via free agency, I think 2 or 3 years ago at this point. Just kind of quick thoughts on DJ Jones and the potential loss the Niners could have with him not returning to San Francisco and staying in Denver.
Yeah, that sucks, but that wasn't the cure. That wasn't like the cure. I think everybody just wanted to see somebody that they were familiar with, and in the spirit of getting the band back together with Robert Saleh, I suppose. But I preferred BJ Hill from Cincinnati. That's who I wanted them to sign in as a defensive tackle. But eventually 3 years for $30 million, that's a little expensive. Obviously for the 49ers and their plans. But it's clear what they're about to do. They're about to do everything in the draft. Everything is going to be through the draft. There is going to be very minimal free agent signings. It'll be Bosa, it'll be Jonathan Allen. That's fine. Everything else will be the draft. And you just gotta accept at this point that the 49ers are not only matching their words with their actions by telling you they want to get younger, they're just going to go through the draft, and they're going to be relying on younger guys going forward. And that's just what it is. I mean, if you don't believe me, believe what they've been telling you and believe what they've been doing. So again, we kind of got met with pushback when we were talking about, hey, this is what the direction of the team is going to be and how they're going to do it. And it's just like, whoa, it means that that doesn't mean that they're not going to spend. Yes, that's exactly what that means. They're not going to spend, especially early on. I don't know how much more clear you want them to be in press conferences, and everyone was just dismissing the Mike Silver article. And I was like, no, this is confirmation of how they're moving right now. And that's why, whether you like Mike Silver or not, that was an article that you should have paid attention to, because it matched words with actions with this free agent period. And day one, here we are.
Yeah, and you mentioned trying to get younger, but the key word with younger is also cheaper. And that's really what it feels like the Niners are trying to do. I see Joe saying it's not a rebuild. It's not a rebuild yet. They're attempting a retool. That is what they're currently trying to do. They're trying to retool. But I can totally see this kind of snowballing, especially like if they miss out on Joey Bosa because Miami's allegedly involved. I can see it snowballing into a rebuild. So we'll see where it goes. Obviously, still very early. Jason, one more. Let's go one more loss before we get into an addition. Just because this one.
Oh, you're muted.
I accidentally bumped into my microphone. There we go. Not a surprise. One more loss before we get into an addition, Jason. Charvarius Ward signs with the Indianapolis Colts, 3 years, $60 million. He said some things that gave you the indication he wasn't going to come back. This is just more of a I hope he does well. I love Charvarius Ward. I think there's a case to be made that, I mean, very clearly the best free agent signing of the John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan era, especially in that. I mean, we had multiple episodes in his first season, Jason, where he was already settling in, and we were talking about best 49ers cornerback since Deion Sanders. So that's like the level of play he had with the Niners. Unfortunately, a lot of off the field stuff with him that obviously nobody controls. It's a very unfortunate situation. Led to him wanting to leave the Santa Clara area, which I will not blame him for. But he lands with Indianapolis, a team who ideally has a chance to make the playoffs next year, especially with the division they're in. So shout out Charvarius Ward. Thank you for being a great Niner, and good luck in Indianapolis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Mooney, get your money, take care of your family. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry about the way things went. And, we can load up a very, very fun revenge game of DeForest Buckner, Samuel Womack, and Charvarius Ward this season when the 49ers go to play the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. So, yeah, shout out to Mooney, man. Get your bag and take care of your family, man. And I'll always root for you, man. Nothing but good things to say about you.
Very good Niner. Not a surprise he left, but I just wanted to shout out a very good San Francisco 49er. Hey, Jason, not all bad things today. The 49ers addressed tight end 2, signing Luke Farrell from the Jacksonville Jaguars. A 3-year deal up to $20 million, $11 million guaranteed. 36 receptions in 66 games, 0 touchdowns. He is the number 2 graded pass blocking tight end on 49 pass blocking attempts in 2024. I don't think I needed to tell you with the 36 receptions in 66 games that he is a blocking first tight end. I guess he's more of a Charlie Warner replacement than he is a George Kittle complementary piece. I messaged JP Acosta of SBNation.com. He's a Jaguars fan. I just said, hey, any thoughts on Luke Farrell? He said, depth guy, pretty solid blocker. Don't expect much in the passing game. And I think that's what his stats can tell you. I know Kyle Shanahan loves his blocking tight ends, Jason. Maybe people might see the 3 for $20 as a lot of money. I just see it as essentially a 2-year, $9 million deal with the $11 million guaranteed. It's not going to be a big cap hit. This is just the Niners did something today signing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we have to just give up this idea of 2 tight ends in the wide receiver game, and just give it up already. It's over. It's never going to happen. And the 49ers are telling you that this kind of feels a little bit more like an interchangeable thing with Kyle Juszczyk. If Kyle Juszczyk is not going to be here, then this kid Farrell will be the irreplaceable guy. But this whole idea that the 49ers want 2 tight ends and they want to run 2 tight ends, I think the only real good thing that you could say about this is Farrell block more, and you know what? I have an idea. Maybe George Kittle run more routes and actually throw him the football a little bit more. So, that could be the good thing that comes from this. Who would have thought that throwing the football to George Kittle a lot might be a good thing? So let's see if the 49ers are big brain this year and they decide to really just spam the tight end and throw the football to him, since George Kittle is still really good and the best in the world.
Yeah, I'm curious what this might mean for Kyle Juszczyk, just because last year they had the what was it called? The restructure issues. And I'm sure they're going to try and change some money around with him again. And if he doesn't want to, I'm sure they'll have no problem moving on from Juszczyk. So we'll see what this move has to do with that and see how that relates. But it's just, I guess the best way to word it is it's a little disappointing. It's a team that's gone very big in free agency in the past previous years, especially on this first day. Javon Hargrave didn't work out. Charvarius Ward worked out. Big names that they've tried to bring in. And now, again, not surprising because of the article that came out that the Niners are looking to get a little cheaper, be a little more cutthroat in negotiations. But I mean, to have the splash signing on day one be a tight end too, and a blocking tight end, I understand it addresses a need. So I'll say that, that's a positive. They address the need, but it's just, it just doesn't feel good, especially with the idea of, Super Bowl 60, Levi Stadium. And this is kind of the push. I know this isn't, again, March 10th. The free agency isn't even officially open. It just doesn't feel good that the big signing we're going to come out from today, unless there's a big surprise here in the next 5 hours, I guess. The big move for the Niners today is just a tight end too, and that's just not great. Not a great feeling.
It's disrespectful to Kevin Givens, by the way. Kevin Givens is back. Super Bowl parade back on. Let's go.
What about Patrick Taylor too? We're gonna mention him.
Patrick Taylor, baby. Practice squad is lit. We back. Let's go. Yeah, whatever, man. I mean, honestly, I didn't expect them to sign anybody this first day. You know, especially the targets that we had put in our head. You know, Dahlman. You know once we heard the Bears were involved, that should have been like out of your head. You should have never thought that was going to happen. That's exactly what happened. You know, and everything else is just the 49ers are just not going to pay up, and that's it. I mean, I have a hard time being upset about something when the 49ers literally told you what they're about to do. And I mean, if you chose not to listen, I mean, that's probably more on you than anything. But like they literally were saying, we need to get younger. We need a cap reset. Does that mean that you're going to go ahead and spend crazy on the first day? No. So no. I don't know. No. All the guys that we thought were going to leave left, and we didn't sign anybody. I don't see what's shocking about today. Like I really don't see what's shocking about today at all, honestly.
No, nothing shocking at all today. So as I said, especially if we talk back to Friday and what came out, it's just, as I said, not shocking, but just disappointing, just knowing where this team could be and the money situations. Obviously, I think that's a different feeling, you know, just disappointment in the situation as a whole. There we go. That's better. Is a disappointment in the situation as a whole. We had about 3 minutes there to talk about the one guy the Niners got, Jason. Let's just get back to the people they lost, especially on the offensive line. The day started. Jalen Moore, the Niners backup tackle who played in plenty of games, never really got a chance to start. He signs a 2-year, $30 million deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. Gives you an idea that the Chiefs believe Jalen Moore is a starter in this league. And again, another player I didn't expect the Niners to retain, especially with the money. I just wish we could go back in time and maybe figure out what he had a little bit more than what we were given. But obviously we can't go back in time to fix that, Jason. We only have what we have. But Jalen Moore is a Kansas City Chief.
Pretty funny that the 49ers fans were so upset about drafting Kingsley Su'Yamida just to have him replaced by Jalen Moore.
There's something in there, yeah.
Look, what's funny about this? What's funny about this is this. Jalen Moore has played well. And I think I knew that something was up when Adam Schefter said there's a big market for Jalen Moore and people view. I'm like, shut up. You short. Like, shut up. Stop saying that out loud. You know, we'd like to keep him. We'd like to like slide him back on the roster, but obviously not. And, you know, people think highly of him. And you know what? Hey, get paid, young man. You know, you go from the 49ers and back up Trent Williams to protecting Patrick Mahomes' blind side. That one, I will say, I did not see coming at all.
No, I mean, I think we were expecting the money. As we said, people were talking about the money he might get as a starter. But I didn't expect it to be Kansas City. I think that's an interesting choice, especially with how they're rebuilding their line as well. You know, they moved on from Joe Thuney. I know they retained Trey Smith. But it's very interesting that a guy the Niners never really gave a chance to necessarily. And again, I'm not calling for him to replace Trent Williams. That's not at all what I'm saying. Maybe look at the other side of the line, see how that could have worked out. But the team with the best quarterback in the universe is like, yep, that's going to be our guy to protect our quarterback. And so that's just an interesting one. Jason, you want to talk about a big contract? Let's talk Aaron Banks. The 49ers losing their starting left guard to the Green Bay Packers. And again, this is not a surprise that the 49ers lost him. Not at all. I think again, got to see the structure of the contract, Jason. But Aaron Banks goes to the Green Bay Packers, 4 years, $77 million, which is the highest contract a former 49er got today. I think if you would have told me yesterday, Jason, that Aaron Banks would have a higher free agent contract or higher total money contract than Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, and Dre Greenlaw, I would have been shocked. I again didn't expect the Niners to retain him, but Aaron Banks being the highest total amount of money and the longest contract as well. Shout out the Green Bay Packers for having that money to spend, I guess, man.
Linemen in this economy get overpaid, regardless. Yes. I mean, just even baseline average starters are going to get the bag. That should just go to tell you how hard it is to find linemen, right? Having said that, the 49ers weren't going to pay market to Aaron Banks anyway, and the 49ers certainly weren't going to pay that. So enjoy Green Bay. I sometimes look at organizations when they sign people and ask, have you watched the tape? Because Aaron Banks was particularly not good, ungood, if you would say, last season. The idea that when he got hurt, there were two people that we said, hey, both of those guys that replaced him played much better than him. Like, that should show you. I don't know what the Green Bay Packers are thinking. I don't know what the Green Bay Packers were watching, but the 49ers weren't prepared to give him market value, and we were fine with that, let alone this contract. But, yeah, enjoy Green Bay, Aaron. Sheesh, my goodness, man. That one I just really didn't understand.
It almost feels like, and I'm pulling up the exact numbers, but you remember when Laken Tomlinson left the 49ers? I mean, same position. He went to the Jets and he signed a pretty big deal with them. What was that contract? Was it 3 years, $40 million with the Jets a couple years ago? And the Niners actually used Aaron Banks to replace him. And I mean, if you just think about their 10 years as a Niner, 3 years for 40 for Laken Tomlinson, or 4 for 77 for Aaron Banks. Like the Tomlinson deal just looks so much better than that. So obviously the Niners weren't going to be involved in that.
Comp pick.
Well, that's the thing. I think the Niners have already reached the max comp pick. They've hit 4 comp picks already.
Yeah.
They lost Josh Dobbs to New England, which cancels out the Luke Farrell signing. So they're at the 4. We'll see what those look like. I would prefer, I know a few people on the Twitter were very excited to count the comp picks. I personally would rather have players like Charvarius Ward and Dre Greenlaw.
Mike Silver's not happy about
myself. That. Yeah, Mike Silver's not happy about that. But
what a little Grinch.
Comp picks are fun, but it sucks that it comes at the expense of good 49ers players that we liked in previous times. That's where it's a bummer. But yeah, comp picks are comp picks. They're nice to have. We know the Niners like to hoard them plenty. Stovey for 4x4 at crossing, whatever that is. I apologize for butchering your name there, Stovey. But it's 2026 comp picks. So we'll find those out at some point here in the next couple of months.
But the idea that you already know you have those in certain rounds could be ammunition for you to move up in this draft if you want to. So if you want to put a positive spin on it, you can't trade those comp picks next year, but you can trade the picks that you do have because you know that you're getting those and you'll have those. So if you want to spin this positively, and I don't want to be sarcastic the entire show, you could look at it as, if we're talking about getting Jahad Campbell, how do you move back up into the first round to get him if the board is sliding that way? This is one of your ways. So, I don't want to be a dick the entire show or whatever and act like, nothing's good or anything like that. But I'm just saying, you could do something like that.
Yeah, there's ways to positively spin today for the 49ers. I think if you look at some of the names they lost, they are injury prone, players that hadn't quite seen the field as much as they had. That's one way to look at it. I think another way to look at it is the comp picks. I don't think that's the big headline for the day. I think the big headline is the 49ers lost a shit ton of good players and a shit ton of players that helped them be good in the previous seasons. But if you're looking for some sort of positive spin on today, yeah, sure. Let's talk about those 2nd to 4th round picks that they're going to get. And I'm not trying, you saying not being sarcastic. I'm not trying to come off as sarcastic. I would say today's more of a negative than a positive, but there are those slight positives to grab onto.
Is there anything to something that I heard about the 49ers actually being outbid by the Rams for Devontae Adams?
I have not seen that yet.
I haven't seen it either. That's why I'm asking the question.
I can look into it a little bit while you talk, but let me see if I could find anything on that.
Okay.
But let's see here. I just typed in Devontae Adams 49ers.
Yeah, I don't see anything for it.
I haven't seen anything come up. So I don't think even that number though, the Rams got him. What was it? 2 years for 40? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Something around there.
Like yeah, no.
That felt like a little out of the Niners range in general at this point.
I was just asking. I don't think that was something that really happened. But yeah, again, with all these guys that the 49ers lost, we were fine with losing them. It's just I want people to direct their anger in the right direction, right? You can't be upset in one breath and say that you knew that Banks and all these guys were going to leave, right? So that part you shouldn't be upset about. We knew that was going to happen. The problem is, Dahlman, Jameis Sherwood, all these other guys that possibly could have been fill-ins. It just And we don't know what's going on. We don't know if the
Yeah.
49ers were involved or not. But it does certainly seem like the 49ers are just doing exactly what they said and just not going for that. And then the defensive tackle stuff, right?
Mhm.
Obviously Malik Collins gets cut. Now you
Yep.
start looking around the room and it's like Khalil Davis and Evan Anderson and now Kevin Gibbons. Those are your defensive tackles right now. And not that that's a bad thing if you have people in front of them that can start. Those guys are rotational guys. Those guys are backups. Like that's the part. So I think it's like your anger needs to be directed in the right direction because you can't be mad that all these guys that we've been talking about all off season were about to leave. Like with Greenlaw, you hoped and wished on a star that he would come back on a prove it 1 year deal, but you knew somebody was going to throw him real money and it was his time to get money. And he told you at Christmas, hey, they would ask him, what do you want for Christmas? I want money. So I don't know, like with the losses, I don't feel anything because I knew that they were all going to leave. I don't feel a thing. But if you're talking about filling in the blanks, and we thought that this formula would happen with the draft and free agency, that's the part where it's like, damn, you really are going to wait till the end of free agency when there's people that are going to be not wanted due to injury concerns or whatever, or age. Right? Like those are the guys that you're going to like fill in with. And it's going to largely be a bunch of young guys. So I think that's the part. If anybody wants to be upset is like, you should go and direct your anger that way.
Yeah. And like Dre Green, like you mentioned, I didn't expect any of these players to be signed. I think the reason Greenlaw hurts the most is he was probably the likeliest player to stay. And even then that was 20%, 15% chance. So I just, none of these guys were expected to stay. And it's an overall bummer that it's again, I think if the season goes bad in 2025, like today's going to be the day you pinpoint. It's like, this was the start. I mean, I guess obviously you can look back at last season and I mean, if you want to be a real narcissist about it, you can go back and talk about Ayuk's contract extension last year as being the start of this. But to me, like this is just a real falling apart day. Jason, last two names who left today before we get into some names the Niners weren't able to bring in, just so we touch on them all. Elijah Mitchell signing with Kansas City, and then Josh Dobbs goes to the New England Patriots. Elijah Mitchell, another one of those, could have been a good Niner, just never could stay healthy. He moves on. He goes to Kansas City, a team that needs a running back. And I feel like this the most obvious thing that's going to happen out of this free agency class for the 49ers is Elijah Mitchell stays healthy for the Chiefs next year and gets
Easily.
like 1,200 yards. Like that's 100% going to happen. Like you could put that down in Sharpie almost, because that's just sick jokes that are played on 49er fans. And that's just how it is. And I'm sure, you know what, especially with the team, it'll probably help them lift the Lombardi for the third time in 4 years. Right. So like, that's just the situation there. And then Josh Dobbs, it was cool. Like it was cool to have the Pastronaut on the team, but backup quarterback, I guess. So there you go. So there's all the losses on the 49ers today, Jason. Any thoughts on Mitchell or Dobbs?
Yeah, Mitchell's the easiest candidate who's going to run for 1,400 yards. I mean, I don't know who couldn't see that coming. And Dobbs, yeah, fine. Backup. I don't really care about backup quarterbacks, honestly, at this point. I mean, if you have to like really dig, and the 49ers fans and us, we had to dig for it because guys were just getting injured every single season. If you have to worry about the backup quarterback problem, you have a much bigger problem. I don't care. Backup quarterbacks are interchangeable. Enjoy yourself, Josh Dobbs. Sounds like the Patriots are spending a lot of money and they're on the right direction.
Let's talk about a couple names that people had wanted to go to the Niners, but the Niners didn't get. Drew Dahlman being the first. He signs a 3-year, $42 million deal with Chicago. Jason, you mentioned it earlier today that the second you heard the Bears involved, with how hard they're working to retune their interior offensive line, Jonah Jackson, Joe Thuney, and now Drew Dahlman, they just did it in the span of not even one offseason, dude, like a span of like 5 days. So that's huge for a Bears team that had some issues protecting their franchise quarterback. And if you really think about, I know a lot of people talk about Ben Johnson, an offensive genius, which he is, not taking that away. But a lot of the Lions' success can be credited to that offensive line, especially Penei Sewell, a player the Niners maybe should have taken at 3 a couple of years ago. Not going to digress. I'm not going to talk about that one there. But a huge signing for the Chicago Bears. And I want to say it's a huge miss for the 49ers. But Jason, again, they told us they weren't going to spend money.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to get Matt Hennessy or Jake Brendel and like it, pal. Like that's literally what the 49ers are doing. But, the good news is is Matt Hennessy was the person that Drew Dalman replaced in Atlanta, and the 49ers got him off of an injury. If you stay with me here, that's usually how this is going to work with the people that they are going to bring in. I just right now, I don't like to be like this, but I hate the idea of this season them running it back with Jake Brendel again at center.
No, they can't.
I understand that Kyle knows more ball than me. Same thing with Chris Forrester. I don't know how you're going to sell that to me. And to me, that is just you like spitting in the face of all of us, because we don't have to know like super intricate O-line play to know that you need a fucking upgraded center. And I understand that you didn't want to pay up on Drew Dalman. I get it. That's fine. But if you go out there and you run Jake Brendel out there and you tell us that that's the best option, like, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining. Like, I'm sorry. Like this is the part of where I'm going to start to get frustrated, because you've watched this man's play erode year after year after year. And now you're going to run it back with him again when there was chances to do something. I asked for Ryan Kelly from Indianapolis. He ended up in Minnesota. And at that price, it would have been fine. Again, it's got to be Matt Hennessy taking this over, because I don't know if I can justifiably look at this team and say they are going to be fine when Jake Brendel is going to be the center again. Yeah. And that's the part that I don't understand.
Well, again, it really felt like the 49ers offensive line took a step back last season, and their response as of right now, again, plenty can change, is, we'll just Aaron Banks out, Spencer Burford, Ben Barch in, left guard, and then that's just what we're going to do. Obviously, plenty of time for that to change. The draft could happen. Maybe, boy, I started, Jason. I made a mistake over the weekend. I watched, who did I watch? I watched a defensive player, forget who it was. They were playing Missouri, and it was I decided to watch Armand Membu. Dude, I want him so bad, man. And I don't think he's not going to get there, but like I made a mistake by watching him, and I just shouldn't have. Oh, it was Donnie E. I can't say his name. I apologize. A pass rusher out of Boston College. That's who I was watching. But man, Membu would be so nice for this line. That guy is just a wall for that Mizzou offense. But don't think that's going to happen, because the combine kind of play them out of it. Jason, you mentioned Ryan Kelly. He would have been the cheaper option to Drew Dalman. He goes to Minnesota. And then another name that some people maybe tied just because of the Robert Saleh connection, DJ Reed. He went to Detroit. He would have been a good utility cornerback for the 49ers. I don't have the numbers on his deal, but it was another one of those. The Niners probably weren't going to be able to match that contract. So that's one's out as well. And then just a couple notes, just teams around the Niners. Sam Darnold goes to the Seahawks, which I saw Niner fans being really excited about. But again, with the way the Niners are going, like there's no way you can't tell me Sam Darnold's not going to beat the Niners twice next year. Especially with that bad team up in Seattle. Not bad team, I shouldn't say that. I'll get clipped by Seahawks fans, but that team that seems to be retooling a little bit, who might be worse than next year or than last year. So he goes up to Seattle. So just any thoughts on players the Niners missed out on, Jason? Anybody I missed?
Thinking of players that they could have signed. Realistically.
Mentioned the linebacker already.
Yeah, Jameis Sherwood, that was done though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we all had ideas for like how to fill this up. Oh, okay. Defensive tackle, edge, like those type of things. There's still some options out there. Again, like I don't want to spend this entire show telling you that they're not going to spend, but Azeez Ojulari is still there. That is somebody that you could get an edge as well too. But this has got to be all done during the draft at this point. So, I think the funniest part is the Javon Kinlaw deal. Like, all right. In the same breath, I was like, Adam Peters, what are you doing? And then Adam Peters turns around and gets Laramie Tunsil, maybe I should shut up. But I think we all like agreed that Javon Kinlaw was like a little bit overhated just because of who he was replacing. But there's no way he's worth that amount of money. Like
3 year, $45 million. Yep.
Yeah. I never would have saw that coming, like, at all. Like he got more guaranteed money than like a bunch of people. And I'm just like, and in my head, I'm like, man, did I miss something? Nah, he was fine. He played all his games, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's that was pretty interesting.
Javon Holland was mentioned in the comments. Just pulled that up. I think you put that in a category of another player who the Niners probably can't afford at this point. Jason, let's get to a couple rumors. Just because there's a few players floating out there that the Niners have been tied to. I'm going to start with Joey Bosa. Just because that kind of there's a little bit more smoke to that. I have some thoughts regarding it. I think he is a fine player. Again, if you're expecting him to revert back to what he was 5 years ago, I don't think he's exactly that. I think he can kind of put him in the Leonard Floyd conversation where like you might get 7-8 sacks from him as Nick Bosa's second. However, the flip side I have of it, if this is true that Miami's actually trying to get involved, I would instantly back out because I don't think where the Niners are financially, he is not a bidding war type player anymore. I think he should be a guy that you try and bring in as cheap as you can because it's just, he feels more over the hill. But then my other concern, and this is more of a San Francisco Giants concern I have in the past of, you remember when the Giants weren't very good? And Jason, I'm more talking to the chat.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't.
But maybe like 6 years ago, they were coming out of the World Series. They had the 15, 16, 17, 18 teams that weren't very good. And it was like, oh, they would keep bringing back Brandon Bell or Pablo Sandoval so they could sell those giraffe hats and they could sell those panda hats and make the money off of the names. That's what the Joey Bosa signing feels like for me. We're talking about a team that's talking about how, they spent so much money last year. It almost feels like one of the bigger reasons they want Joey Bosa at this point is the marketing material. And again, that's a very hefty accusation for me to throw out. But it almost just feels like one of those moves to be like, yeah, we're 2-5 through October, but we got both the Bosas, type thing. And that's my big hold back on that one. And I don't know if that's necessarily a fair thought, but I don't like the idea of Joey. I like the idea of Joey Bosa, the player, especially if he's going to be a second, third pass rusher. But he just really with everything that's happened in the past 72 hours with the Niners decidedly trying to be cheaper. This almost feels like let's get some butts and seats type signing, even though the Niners don't really have that issue.
Oh, it's marketing, and it's to a segment of the fan base. But I'm literally sitting here holding it back.
Listen, I had that joke on Friday because people were like, hey, go check out Nick Bosa's mom's Instagram story of her saying wow, it'd be cool. And then you open her Instagram stories and it's a very crazy conspiracy theory. And then you got to press the next one. And then that's where the Joey, but yes, Jason, that joke is definitely there.
Oh, I you know what? I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, so it's fine. I don't need to go ahead and say it. But I think, the whole Joey. Oh, yeah, Kyle Juszczyk released. Let's talk about it.
I'm confirming. Are we confirming it?
It's confirmed.
And there it is. Yep. Adam Schefter. Thank you, Peyton McDermott, breaking the news. Per Adam Schefter, per Peyton McDermott to me and Jason. Source, 49ers confirmed 9-time Pro Bowl fullback Kyle Juszczyk tonight. That he is being released. He is set to hit free agency and wants to continue playing. So you remember 30 minutes ago when we were talking about Luke Farrell and what that might mean for Kyle Juszczyk? Within the podcast, we found out that the Niners have decided that Kyle Juszczyk is expendable, which I think is something we may have known for maybe a year or two now. I feel like there was a really big, especially around the 2019 to 2021 era of the 49ers. It was you can't really run the offense without Kyle Juszczyk. And then that kind of wore its welcome. And it led to the Niners trying to restructure him last year. That kind of caused a rift. And now here we are, Kyle Juszczyk, reportedly a free agent.
Yeah, and the writing was on the wall last year when the 49ers tried to ask him for a pay cut. He said that he wasn't happy about it. The 49ers held on, and then we saw what happened with the season as well, too. So, yeah, I mean, this felt inevitable as well, too. I don't really – this isn't shocking in any way. It would only have to be that he would have stayed for a minimal amount of money. I guarantee you one of the 4 or 5 teams that employ a fullback will definitely give him a look. I wouldn't be shocked if the Baltimore Ravens came calling for him. That would, it's an upgrade at least a little bit, and they can use him in a different way as well, too. But, yeah, it's time, man. The next evolution of this offense has to be, less with the fullback, even though it's still probably going to be something similar with Farrell. But if you're gonna try to evolve this thing, and it seems like everybody else has evolved and moved on from this offense, and the teams that look better were of the McVay tree this season, and they look like they were the ones pushing everything forward. This is just par for the course, I think, at this point.
I'm gonna pick out Jeb's comment here, not because I disagree with Jeb. I think this is an overarching thought for 49er fans. I think Juice was still good, just underutilized. I don't disagree with that sentiment. I really don't. But I mean, in what term of underutilized? Like in terms of trying to get the ball more. I mean, you have an offense with Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, every name we've mentioned, Jawan Jennings. I think Juszczyk was a little too overpriced, I think is the word for him to be like he is a weapon, but I guess to go back to baseball, Jason, if we're talking about, I don't know, like Logan Webb, again, another Giants reference. He's an ace on the Giants, but like if you put him in another rotation, he might be a 2, right? Like that type of thing. Where it's if you put Kyle Juszczyk on another team, like he can be a very valuable offensive weapon. But on the Niners, it's just, why would you give him the ball in terms of other weapons on this team? And that's my thing is I think Juszczyk was a good Niner. He played his role very well. But in terms of like trying to get him the ball more, it wouldn't make, to me, schematic sense. It wouldn't make sense in terms of game theory within the game. It's just, there's so many other players that need attention on this offense, and Juszczyk just kind of fell behind.
And in base downs, that makes sense, especially in the run game, because he's been very good, with creating angles and identifying zone and man and stuff like that. But I mean, we just saw a season in which Jawan Jennings had an expanded role, and essentially Juice is keeping him off the field like during this time, and how much that could have helped, So I think there's a little bit of column A, column B when it comes to this. So, I understand his importance. I don't want to dismiss it. And I think that a lot of people just got in their bag at dismissing anything that he did well. But I think at this time, where the offense is, where the offense was, it's just a necessary step of evolution in terms of this offense to be able to create more explosives. And there was a way to do it. And if you notice, the teams that, aside from Baltimore, that were using fullbacks last season, they largely struggled on offense. Miami, the 49ers, right? Like they felt like they were a little bit left behind last season. So this season's a good chance for them to evolve that. So, you know what you do?
Yeah.
Instead of having the fullback on the field, now maybe put another receiver on the field who can get himself open and give another target to Brock Purdy. I mean, I'm just, again, just thinking out loud here.
I need somebody with more time than me, Jason, to put together a supercut of every wheel route that Kyle Juszczyk ran wide open that a Niners quarterback
Jimmy Garoppolo missed.
Nick Mullins had one. I remember Nick Mullins had the one against
Nick Mullins
Eagles
had one against Philly. The Tennessee one with Jimmy, where he just threw it and he just completely botched it. Now there are the ones that they got right. That the rail route against Seattle in 2019 when they needed a big play. And then there's the one in 2020 against the Rams, in which, if you're watching the film, you see him miss Juszczyk, and you see Kyle just throw his hands up in the air. So
I remember the app. Yeah, no, that I feel like we can make a pretty, like maybe like a 5-minute highlight reel of just all the missed wheel routes that was thrown to him.
Rich Madrid's on the job.
Richmond, we got him. We'll get Rich to do it. Honestly, man, knowing Rich, he probably has that.
He probably already has it.
It's just already there. He's like, God damn it, these are the time he missed. What the hell?
I mean, and it's not even called. It's not even called wheel route. It's a stalk rail. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. I mean, the difference is you break the route off this way.
Jason, I feel like we touched a little bit on everything. I saved one specific one for the very end of the podcast, so we can end on a positive note. We'll file this one under rumor. Josina Anderson reported earlier today. I want to read this tweet. Josina Anderson reported earlier today, I'm told the 49ers and the Chargers have been in conversation with Jameis Winston for potential backup roles per league source. The Giants could potentially be in contact pending outcome of talks with other quarterbacks. Boy, oh boy, listen, man. I understand if you're a Niner fan who has some reservations about Jameis Winston. I get it. Me, on the other hand, as a Florida State fan, somebody who fondly remembers that national champ, I'm so in love with that national championship team, Jason Aponte, that you can tell me, I would tell you, Kelvin Benjamin can make an NFL team right now. That's how much I love that team. I know I'm crazy. But in terms of what the Niners are looking for, in terms of a backup quarterback, and it is something that's kind of haunted them. They've had quarterbacks miss games due to injuries every year since Garoppolo tore his ACL, obviously 19. He was healthy the entire year. Purdy technically missed the game in 2023, but that was because it was a week 18 game against the Rams. It didn't mean anything. So realistically, look at it, the last 10 years, the Niners have had 2 fully healthy seasons from quarterbacks. I cannot think of a better quarterback in an emergency situation than Jameis Winston, just because of what we've seen him do as a backup. But he also, like all respect to Josh Dobbs and Nate Sudfeld, I guess, but he really feels like the only backup available that can also be a starter, right? Like if Brandon Allen too, like if Brock Purdy went down for 8 games last season, and Josh Dobbs came in, you would be like, okay, we're kind of screwed. But if that same thing happens 2025, knock on wood, we don't want Brock Purdy to go down, you would feel pretty comfortable with Jameis Winston. But the big one for me, man, I don't think it's going to happen, but the Niners are one of those teams that can be a Hard Knocks team. I don't know if they would do it, but if the Niners get Jameis Winston on Hard Knocks with Kyle Shanahan, like the content that we could have, Jason, just you and I, but Niners Twitter would be all time, would absolutely be all time, because Kyle Shanahan loves his very structured quarterbacks. I think that's why he liked Jimmy Garoppolo for so long. It's because Jimmy Garoppolo will run your offense how you want to run it. Jameis Winston is the exact opposite of that. He thrives on chaos. So Jameis Winston would be a very fun, personal name for the 49ers to sign.
Let me make the decision for you, 49er fans. And I don't like to tell you how to feel when it comes to certain things and who. The answer is yes. The answer is fucking yes. If we're going to have a season in which things are going to be trending in a direction of reform, rechange, recalibration, whatever bullshit term you guys want to put it through, let's at least have some fun. But on a serious note, right? Let's think of it this way. If you're Jameis Winston and you want to present yourself as a starting quarterback, where else would you probably go in which you could have a chance to shine in a way that would have people think that you should be a bridge quarterback to a younger guy or possibly somebody for a quarterback competition? Now, think about Sam Darnold. How much of Sam Darnold's now trajectory, now he's hated Seahawk, has to do with the fact that he learned so many things just being there with Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan, and how much people attribute what he's been able to do in this 1 year with obviously the fact that Kevin O'Connell's a real good coach, but what he's been able to learn. So look, obviously for the jokes, for the culture, for sure, that'll be hilarious to have Jameis Winston, and if he is pressed into duty, he is better than any 49ers backup quarterback they've ever had. And that'd be, under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, because I know somebody is gonna Steve Young was a backup. Let's settle it down. But yeah, and he could, when he's thrust in the fire, actually throw the football down the field and actually get guys open. I mean, I watched him torch a Denver Broncos defense on Monday Night Football that was a top 10 defense, absolutely torched them in Denver, right? And that's the type of stuff you get. You also get the crazy interceptions, but that's what you get with a backup. Let's have some fun. For fuck's sake, let's have some fun, please, man. Don't look at me in the face and say that you think that Brandon Allen is a better backup quarterback than Jameis Winston. Just please, man. For once, don't lie to our face and tell us that we don't know ball. There is no way that there's a chance that Brandon Allen is better than Jameis Winston. Josh Dobbs is not better than him. If you're able to find a way to get this done, let's have some fun, man. I think it'll be hilarious.
Yeah, no, it'd be great. The joke I like to make, about the dumb interceptions is everybody talks about the 30-30 season he had. But to have the first ever 30 touchdown, 30 interception season, you got to throw for 30 touchdowns. And that's a pretty damn good number to have. But it's also too, man, if you really want to take the dive into the rabbit hole, if they do sign Jameis Winston and something completely breaks down with the Brock Purdy negotiations, where something happens, I cannot think of a better bridge quarterback than Jameis Winston, but we don't need to dive into that rabbit hole. I just think personally, man, I would be very, very excited for Jameis Winston to suit up for the 49ers, just because he's been a favorite of mine for a very long time. It's something that we've talked about, a possibility for 5 years on this podcast now, Jason. And for it to even be a rumor, I'm excited. I'm giddy. Now, I do think the other name there with the Chargers makes a lot of sense. I don't know how many people know this, but Jim Harbaugh heavily recruited Jameis Winston to go to Stanford. Jameis chose Florida State, which thank God, because Florida State probably doesn't win a national championship without him. But again, that's just Andrew's personal feelings. And then I know not a lot of Niner fans care about it. Hey, Chase Young just got a 3-year, $51 million deal with the Saints. There you go, buddy. But yeah, if we're talking about sensible backup quarterbacks, if you want to feel comfortable in a situation where Brock Purdy does go down later, at some point in the season where you need a game or two, I cannot think of a better available backup quarterback right now than Jameis Winston. So it's just a lot of talk regarding. I know, Jason, you touched on about 30 minutes ago. We don't care about backup quarterbacks, which we do not.
I care about this one.
But we gotta throw an asterisk out there. Unless the backup is Jameis Winston, then we very much care.
So when the 49ers traded for Christian McCaffrey, people said running backs don't matter. I said they didn't trade for a running back. They traded for Christian McCaffrey.
Yes.
I don't care about backup quarterbacks, but we're not talking about a backup quarterback. We're talking about Jameis Winston. So there's your difference.
Mike G's on the right. What brave length here. Next, Doug Williams. Sorry, Winston steps in for an injury. Brock and wins the Super Bowl 60 at Levi's. How about that?
There's some optimism to put in your coffee.
Hey, and what was it? God delivered him from throwing pick sixes. So we're set, man. We're set. How's he gonna throw pick sixes?
And if you're worried about games in which the weather's going to be poor, those perhaps would be the games that Jameis Winston would start, because he was fine in Cleveland when he saw his first
first snow. Hey, man, I know this was I know Niner fans are big QB wins. I cannot think of a better QB wins. You literally cannot spell Winston without wins. So if we're talking QB wins, buddy, there we go. It's all laid out there. There we go. Sign Jameis and draft Kyle Williams.
Hey.
There we go.
Kyle Williams is a baller. I don't want to hear it.
I had a mock yesterday where I got him. You want to hear this mock I did yesterday, Jason?
Sure.
James Pierce at 11. This is all thrown out because free agency. James Pierce at 11. Xavier Watts at 43. Cameron Williams at 75. Aeneas Peebles at 99. Gunnar Helm at 112. And then I went Kyle Williams at 138. And then Bashal Tootin at 39. I know.
Wow. That would be a steal at 138.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the future ETN versus Bashal Tootin conversation we're going to have in April, because that'll be a heated one. I'm excited for it. But yeah. So, Jason, overall, not a very good day for the San Francisco 49ers. But
not unexpected.
Exactly. It's not an unexpected bad day. It's something we expected. Again, if you want to spin it positively, you could be one of those comp pick sickos out there who are bragging about the Niners having 4 more picks in 2026. And that's totally fine. You're not wrong for that. I think sickos and sometimes are good things. So I just not a good day for the Niners. Vibes are not good, but again, not unexpected.
Yeah, I think we all could have said, hey, we know this was going to happen. But then when it does happen, how do you really feel like when it does happen? I think that's kind of just where we are. It's like you prepared yourself for all of this, and then it happens and you're like, man, this actually really sucks. Yeah. Because you thought there was going to be different things, right? Like you thought, hey, there's a chance to get Drew Dahlman. We get DJ Reed back, to replace this guy. And then, like when you have all those losses and you have no one but a tight end 2 to add, that's when people are going to start to tizzy and tip over a little bit more, because that would have changed things if the 49ers would have been able to replace, like if, Dre Greenlaw leaves, Jameis Sherwood gets brought in. Fine. Charvarius Ward's going to leave. DJ Ward could be there. That's cool. DJ Reed could be there. Like those types of things. And I think it's not the names that left. I think everybody realized that was going to happen. I think it's the lack of replacements in free agency through the first day that I think people are, sitting there a little bit upset with.
Yeah, again, no shame for feeling bad for today. But if you're surprised, I think that's a totally different conversation.
Najee Harris is a Charger.
That's a good little signing there for the Chargers, especially how much Jim Harbaugh loves his running backs. Yeah, just not a good day for the Niners overall. Kyle Juszczyk, the most recent, he is the longest tenured Niner, no more. So there you go. So Jason, rough day. We'll see what happens in the next couple of days. let's tentatively plan for New Year's. But if the Niners don't do anything over the next 48 hours, we'll see. So we'll see when the next Sprint Right Option podcast is. Maybe the vibes will be a little higher on the next one. Maybe the Niners shock us and make a trade. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Jason, overall, not a good day, not a good feeling day, but we had fun on this podcast, and that's all that mattered. I also enjoyed Birds in the Trap. If you wanted just an abrupt change topic, very good album. I enjoyed it. Some songs I recognize. I like Beebs in the Trap. You shouted that one out. Very good album. I enjoyed it.
I just put an 8 for the leader. Got a white wrist and a beaver. Yeah, that's such a good song. Yeah, that's such a good album, honestly. And I forgot that Cuddy was all over it. But yeah,
I was shocked when I heard Cuddy. I think on 2 songs, I'm like, am I sure Jason recommended this one specifically?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Through the Night is the shit though. I love that song so much. Yeah, but yeah, that's like I said, I don't know if I could call that his best album, but it's my favorite album just based on vibes and everything as well too. So yeah, maybe Wednesday we'll have a new recommendation for you.
Perfect. That sounds good to me, Jason. Jason, fun day, not a fun day, fun podcast, fun last hour with you. Not a fun day for the 49ers, but Jason, whether the day is fun for the 49ers or not, as always,
let's go Niners. We're back.
Let's go Niners, and let's there's still 2 more months of the offseason. Things can change. Probably not, but things can change.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.